Lupin III: The Castle of Cagliostro is one of the best animated films of all time, if not the very best animated film, and while I'm not going to go about ranking every single animated film in this video or even going to debate that, I just want to claim that Lupin III is the perfect animated adventure. And just a disclaimer for my subscribers, video essay is in the title, so there will be less jokes and less camera shots. So no laughing. Once again, me saying that this is the perfect animated adventure doesn't mean that every single other animated adventure is necessarily worse, but this movie is literally just the perfect representation of a childlike, imaginative fantasy adventure. The characters are all memorable, the colors are perfectly selected and vibrant, the atmosphere and scenery are all beautiful and imaginative, the adventure is complex yet easy to follow, and it has everything you would want to see in both an animated movie and just an adventure in general. Let's start by looking at the colors first, because this is one of the most prominent acts of perfection this film commits. Color is one of the most important aspects of any film because of the way it consciously and subconsciously affects the viewer. Back when film was still in black and white, the first color in film was achieved by dyeing the actual film to tint the color of certain scenes. Directors and cinematographers meticulously chose specific colors for this to have the right effect on the viewer. Sometimes scenes will be tinted red to express intensity in the scene, or maybe green to attempt to convey a natural calmness. Of course, as technology improved, people were able to put colors wherever they wanted in movies, which led to even more complexity. Now there could be combinations of colors to convey even more complex feelings to the viewer. Of course, colors are complicated though. You can't necessarily describe the feeling of a color or how a color looks to someone who can't see it. And sometimes the same colors can mean different things. Sometimes green can represent nature and naturalness, and other times it can represent computers and mundane stuff like in The Matrix. Because of this, it's not easy to just pick a color that represents an emotion. Directors and cinematographers have to carefully plan out which colors they're going to use and when they'll use them, like music notes in a symphony. And if it's done correctly, it'll come together naturally in a way where the untrained eye will enjoy and the proficiently trained eye will be impressed. I'm not just randomly talking about all this to flex either, I'm explaining this because the more you understand colors in the context of film and animation, the more you'll enjoy watching The Castle of Cagliostro. This movie has perfect examples of how to use every type of color and gradient you could think of in a way that perfectly complements the Fantasyland and adventure. One of the reasons this is because of how vibrant the colors are throughout the entire film. A lot of times, especially in recent Hollywood movies, the directors or editors will result to desaturating everything to make it feel serious and gritty, and this, in my opinion, is an unfortunate trend. Of course, it's going to be more difficult to efficiently coordinate all of your colors when the saturation is always high, but in doing so, you'll have a much better film with harmonic colors that convey the film's ideas to the viewer. In The Castle of Cagliostro, the most desaturated scene in the entire movie is at the very beginning. At night. Obviously, nighttime scenes are going to be darker, but despite that, this scene still has much brighter and better colors than most Hollywood movies, by using blues and purples to convey darkness as opposed to just grays. Then, immediately after symbolizing the start of the adventure, the casino lights up and shows tons of bright and pretty colors as the action starts to ramp up. Of course, there's nothing wrong with less saturated colors in movies or anything, especially when done correctly, but not only do brighter colors look more impressive when they're in perfect harmony, but brighter colors are much better to symbolize a childlike, imaginative adventure. Think about it. When you were a kid running around fighting pretend monsters and running in the woods to build a castle, were the colors you imagined dull and dark? Well, maybe. Obviously context matters, but I hope you get what I'm saying by this at least. The intro to the movie is another perfect example of what I'm talking about. First you see the bright road and blue skies with the contrasting bright yellow car and bright green money being thrown everywhere. These colors are not random though. Blue, green, and yellow are all right next to each other on the color wheel and create a pretty theme when put together. Not to mention, this is also the color scheme of Lupin himself with his pretty blue-green suit and his yellow tie. The entire movie does a perfect job creating tons and tons of bright, saturated, and different color themes that all convey different feelings. The bright, luscious greens and blues as they run up to the castle could both convey the start of an adventure and a natural curiosity and wonder that both Lupin and the viewer feel at this point in the movie. As the day turns to night in the movie, the sky turns purple and yellow and pink and orange as the colors get cooler and the story starts to progress. In the other night scenes, instead of it being so dark that you can't see, the sky is a beautiful dark blue with gorgeously animated backgrounds. The backgrounds and scenery in general are another thing that makes this movie absolutely perfect. Every single piece of background art looks like it was made specifically as an art piece or a desktop background and not just the background of a movie. The attention to detail in both the animation and colors in this movie is inconceivable, and there's not a single moment of visual boredom throughout the entire film. Almost every single frame of this movie could be screen capped and set as a desktop wallpaper without anyone thinking twice. Not to mention, probably more than half of the frames in this movie have every single color in them, which is not only beautiful but a fun thing to look for as you watch the film. But of course, while nice, colors and animation aren't the only thing that are important in a film. In fact, some barbarians out there would go as far as to say they don't care about that kind of thing. Those guys are wrong, of course, but like, they still exist, unfortunately. Anyway, Lupin the Third has several movies and multiple anime, so I'm not going to go into their characters in terms of the whole series, but just their characters as far as this movie goes. Our two main characters are Lupin and Jigen, who are not only thieves, but are morally good guys who actually seem skilled in all types of combat and pretty much anything they need in terms of adventuring and stealing. Of course, thieves who are low-key good guys seems to be a type of character that is widely enjoyed in lots of different films, but the thieving aspect of their characters is really only relevant in terms of their abilities in this movie at least. Their characters start to show themselves towards the beginning when they see somebody chasing a girl in a car. Lupin says he doesn't know what's going on but wants to save the girl anyway. Later we find out Lupin did know who the girl was, but I'm not sure he recognized her right away. He saves the girl, but the girl gets captured again into the castle of Cagliostro, where Lupin and Jigen begin their adventure. While the original intentions were to just get a counterfeiting machine that was printing realistic money, it ends up turning into an adventure to both save the princess and also take down Cagliostro's global economic scheme. And, well, you know, maybe keep some for himself if he's able to. Cagliostro is one of the most evil bad guys ever, which again is perfect for this type of fantasy adventure. He's giant, always smirking, arrogant, and scary. He's the perfect bad guy because in every scene he enters, he brings an aura with him that commands attention from both the viewer and everyone in the film. He even has a servant with gross colored green hair who intentionally looks like a rat. There's also a girl named Fujiko who's undercover in the castle and trying to have a heist of her own to get some riches from Cagliostro. I assume she plays a more prominent role in other films as she mostly just assists Lupin in any way that he needs while constantly talking about and alluding to having a past with him. Goemon I also assume has a more prominent role in other films, but in this movie he's a silent assassin. He doesn't say much, but he's obviously extremely cool and proves to be a skilled warrior. Lastly is Inspector Zenigata. He's trying to arrest Lupin, but later ends up teaming up with him after finding about the current insidious global economic crimes being committed by Cagliostro. This is another really well-written character that has well-defined morals. He does want to arrest Lupin because he's a thief, but when there are other clearly worse things happening, he understands where the priorities are, unlike most cartoon and real-life police officers. All of these characters are extremely likable and realistic and do a great job of progressing and keeping the story interesting. With the global economic counterfeiting scheme going on, the story is going to be complex, but is still easy to follow along. At one point in the film, the inspector tells the United Nations about what's happening, but everyone is already bought out by Cagliostro, so they just ignore him. And of course, Russia and the United States start arguing. But later, while Cagliostro is marrying the princess, it's being streamed live on TV to the news. Of course, this is where Lupin's plans unfold and he starts saving the princess, which is all captured on camera. The chief claims to know where Lupin went and signals for the camera, but actually leads him to the counterfeit money heist so that it could be exposed on live TV for the world to see. This obviously isn't the most complex thing in the world, but you aren't going to see many other animated movies with a side plot as well written and as intricate as this one. With the way the film is written and unfolds, it's easy to follow along because everything is happening naturally, one thing after the other. There's not a lot of weird time cuts or scenes where you have to listen to every single detail of someone's conversation to understand what's happening in the next scene. It's literally just an adventure unfolding in front of your eyes, and the best parts are the exact parts that you would imagine as a kid, like when Lupin is trying to sneak through the castle unseen, or trying to swim up a waterfall to keep up with Jigen, or when he's dodging all of the elaborate traps in the castle set by Cagliostro, or even when he's jumping and climbing on the castle walls to save the princess. At the end of the day, words are inert, and I might not be perfectly conveying what I'm trying to say, but there is one thing I can say for sure, and that's that this movie does perfectly convey these feelings, so I really hope you all watch it if you've never seen it before. Obviously, I'm not the first person to say this movie is amazing or even the best ever, but hopefully I encouraged a few people who have never seen it before to go and check it out. And also, I've never seen anything else Lupin the Third, so please recommend me some stuff in the comments, whichever anime, because I don't know which one to watch. There's so many of them. And also, please subscribe. Your boy's uploading twice a week while sick.
Shadow man, shadow box, dancing, the darker meters, resurrected agony, this apathy for caskets. Everything I ever loved, I lost in the magic. I gassed in front of a college dropout. My music was a church, me a spirit hopped out. Met a gypsy in the lane, she reading my palm tree. Mysterious situation like kissing the concrete. I eat getting money, I be close to heaven.